If you ask the average person to picture the afterlife, you usually get the exact same image: souls floating aimlessly on bright white clouds, existing as disembodied spirits in a hazy sky. It is a picture deeply embedded in our collective imagination. Yet, for a concept so widely accepted as the standard Christian view of eternity, it has almost zero basis in actual biblical text. Over centuries, popular culture has quietly absorbed an entirely different set of assumptions about what happens after we die, confusing a permanent escape plan with the actual promised destination. Getting the endpoint wrong creates a ripple effect backward into our present lives. If our ultimate goal is to shed our physical forms, it changes exactly how we value the physical bodies we inhabit today. The true architects of this cloud-dwelling afterlife weren't biblical authors at all. They were ancient Greek thinkers like the Platonic philosophers and early Gnostics. Their entire worldview rested on a strict division. The spiritual realm was pure and good, while all physical matter was inherently corrupt. To them, human spirits were essentially trapped inside crude, physical meat prisons. Following that logic, the only sensible purpose of death was liberation. The ideal eternity meant severing every tie with the material world and floating away into a purely spiritual existence. We still carry traces of that ancient Greek philosophy today, but if the biblical promise of eternity isn't about abandoning the material universe to become a floating spirit, we have to look at what the original texts actually claim. This is a look at an ancient biblical manuscript, and its opening pages tell a completely different story. God creates a physical world with dirt, water, and vegetation, and repeatedly calls the material structure good, eventually labeling it very good. In this framework, humans were never designed to be ethereal ghosts temporarily borrowing a skeletal frame. We were built to be fully integrated creatures, entirely physical and entirely spiritual at the exact same time. The biblical authors acknowledge that the current state of the world is marred by sin and decay, yet the physical environment itself isn't the problem. It is simply a broken version of a structure built for permanence. The blueprint laid out in Genesis establishes a deep value for the material universe. The overarching narrative points toward a creator who intends to eventually salvage and restore his physical creation, rather than throwing it in the cosmic trash bin. This exact conflict of ideas played out historically in Athens. The Apostle Paul stood on the rocky outcrop of the Areopagus to debate the leading Greek philosophers of his day. As Paul built his case using spiritual arguments and logic, the audience followed along closely. He spoke their language, and the crowd was entirely engaged with his theology. Then he dropped a singular concept that ruined his credibility with them. He suggested that the ultimate hope involved resurrected bodies. The crowd immediately dismissed him as a drunk or a madman because he violated their deepest intellectual premise, the desire to escape the physical. Paul was pointing to the historical, physical resurrection of Jesus as the proof of concept. It was the first tangible evidence that a human body could defeat death and emerge in a permanent, glorified state. For an ancient culture obsessed with shedding their physical forms, the claim that God was going to permanently resurrect human bodies, heaven, as a spiritual resting place for the dead, is accurately described as a temporary layover, a waypoint on a much longer journey. The final destination outlined in the book of Revelation is the new heaven and the new earth. It is a permanent merging of the spiritual dwelling place of God with the physical domain of humanity. This means eternity is an actual, tactile location. The same beauty that commands our awe today, the towering mountain ranges, the dense forests, the deep oceans, will be fully restored to an uncorrupted state, and the people inhabiting this restored environment will have physical forms to match it. The promise is a glorified body, analogous to the one you have right now, but functioning flawlessly as originally intended. The ultimate hope of Christianity is not an evacuation plan from a doomed planet. It is the exact opposite, heaven coming down to earth to mend the fracture in the natural order. Recognizing the true trajectory of eternity anchors us firmly in the present. What we believe about the distant future directly dictates our actions on a Tuesday afternoon. If the physical world and our physical bodies are destined for eternal renewal, they hold immense inherent value right now. The way we steward our daily health and how we treat the tangible environment around us suddenly carries actual weight. We navigate our current lives carrying a heavy, often subconscious burden. We are constantly pushing against the friction, disease, and decay of a physical world that is operating at a deficit. Knowing that a complete restoration is coming validates every effort we make to bring order, healing, and beauty to the spaces we inhabit today. To grasp what that future physical redemption will actually feel like, think of the most grueling, chaotic day of travel you've ever survived. You spend hours navigating crowds, dragging heavy luggage, and holding deep, rigid tension in every single muscle. Then, late at night, you finally unlock your front door. You walk into your own room, collapse onto your own bed, and experience that overwhelming, total body release as the exhaustion leaves your frame. That profound sense of physical and emotional relief is just a microscopic taste of what awaits. It is the closest earthly parallel to the feeling of stepping out from under the crushing weight of a fractured world. The promise of eternity gives us something tangible to look forward to. It is the final, permanent release from the decay that binds us, freeing us to inhabit a restored earth and fully experience our physical existence as it was always meant to be.